All right, ready to dig into the age of Jackson.
Sure am.
But we're not going to rehash the textbook stuff. We're going deeper.
Sounds good to me.
This time, it's all about Jackson's impact on the economy
Oh, interesting.
and how his successor, Martin Van Buren, dealt with the fallout.
Okay, so where are we getting all this from?
Mostly from this awesome podcast episode.
Which one?
It's called The Little Magician from American History Tellers.
All right, I think I've heard of that one.
So, get ready. We're going to uncover the human side of all this economic turmoil.
And there was a lot of it, right?
Oh yeah, booms and busts, political maneuvering, even a slave ship rebellion.
Wow, okay. That's a lot to unpack.
It is, but that's why we're here.
True. So let's start with the economy. It seems kind of contradictory, right?
How so?
Well, you hear about this booming economy under Jackson.
Right, the age of Jackson, everyone was doing well, right.
Well, not exactly. It was more complicated than that.
Okay, so the benefits weren't reaching everyone equally.
Exactly. See, Jackson was really wary of speculation, especially land speculation.
He thought it was risky.
Very. He saw it as something that could, destabilize the whole economy.
I see.
And he blamed the Second Bank of the United States for fueling this speculation.
Right, the second bank with all its power over money and credit.
Yeah. So he wanted to limit their influence.
And that's where the Specie Circular comes in 1836.
You got it.
Yeah.
He demanded payment for public lands in gold or silver, hard currency only.
But didn't that kind of backfire?
It did, big time. He wanted to curb inflation, stabilize
Makes
things.
sense.
But instead, banks started hoarding gold and silver. Credit dried up.
So the opposite of what he intended.
Exactly. Businesses couldn't get loans. People panicked. It was a mess.
It's crazy how policies can have these unintended consequences.
Yeah. The podcast episode even talks about flour riots in New York City.
Flour riots.
Yeah, people were desperate, stealing flour to feed their families.
Wow, that's rough. So all of this lands on Martin Van Buren's plate.
Right. Jackson's hand-picked successor.
The Little Magician, they called him. What a nickname.
Yeah. Van Buren was definitely a shrewd politician.
He had held a bunch of important positions before becoming president.
But even the best magician would have trouble fixing this mess.
It was like a ticking time bomb that Jackson left behind.
It's an interesting way to put it. But you're not wrong.
And to make things even tougher, Van Buren was incredibly loyal to Jackson.
Oh, yeah, totally devoted to those Jacksonian policies.
Even as his own party was starting to have doubts.
You know, it makes you think, was he really on board with all of it?
Or did he feel trapped, forced to follow a plan he didn't believe in?
That's the question, isn't it? Loyalty versus what? His own judgment.
It's a fascinating dilemma.
It really is. And we're just getting started.
We've been talking about this economic turmoil, but it's important to remember that real people were affected by all of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just numbers on a ledger.
Right. Real lives.
One of the most tragic examples of this is the Trail of Tears.
The forced removal of the Cherokee Nation from their lands.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't just about economics or politics.
There was something else going on, too.
There were these deep-seated prejudices against Native Americans.
Jackson didn't exactly hide those views, did he?
Not really. He saw Native Americans as obstacles.
Obstacles to westward expansion.
Exactly. And his policies reflected that belief.
It's so sad.
Yeah. The podcast episode we're looking at, it actually focuses on this one soldier,
Oh, interesting.
a private John J. Burnett, who was an interpreter during the removal.
So he was there, witnessing it all.
He was fluent in Cherokee and saw the brutality firsthand.
I can't imagine what that must have been like for him.
It's tough to even think about,
Yeah.
But his story gives us a glimpse.
Into the human cost of this policy.
He describes families being torn apart, people driven into stockades.
And those horrible conditions on the forced march west.
The suffering was immense.
It's just awful. There's this one part in the episode that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Burnett sees a white teamster whipping an elderly Cherokee man.
Oh, gosh.
And he just can't stand by and watch, so he intervenes.
Even though he could have been punished for it.
Exactly. He's risking his own safety.
It's such a powerful moment.
It really is, this act of defiance.
A soldier, bound by duty, choosing to protect the vulnerable.
Challenging the authority of his superiors.
It makes you wonder
What?
how many other acts of kindness and resistance went unnoticed during this time.
Probably countless, unfortunately.
Yeah, likely.
It's such a morally complex situation, isn't it?
It really is.
You have this official policy,
Yeah.
but then you have individuals.
Like Burnett.
Wrestling with their own conscience.
Choosing to act differently.
It's hard to know what the right thing to do would have been.
Right. And we also can't forget Van Buren's role in all of this.
Right. He was president during this time.
Yeah. And despite growing opposition, people were starting to understand the horrors of what was happening.
Were they?
Yeah. And even with that, Van Buren still enforced the removal policy.
He didn't waver.
Nope. He argued that it was for the Cherokees' own salvation.
Salvation? That's chilling.
It is, isn't it? It's like a reminder.
Of what?
That even well-intentioned leaders can perpetuate harm.
If they fail to question their own assumptions and prejudices.
It's a tough lesson to learn.
It really is. And speaking of moral dilemmas, the Amistad case.
Oh, wow, yeah. That's a whole other story.
It's a slave ship rebellion, right?
That's right. In 1839,
okay.
a group of Mende people, they were kidnapped from Sierra Leone.
Oh, wow.
Sold into slavery. And they revolted on this Spanish ship, La Amistad.
That took some serious courage.
Oh, absolutely. They were led by a man named Joseph Cinque.
I vaguely remember hearing about this, but I don't know the details. What happened to them?
Well, the ship ended up off the coast of Long Island.
Okay.
And it was seized by the U.S. Navy.
So they were caught.
The Mende people were imprisoned.
Oh.
And the whole thing turned into this huge legal and political battle.
That makes sense.
Spain wanted them back as property.
Still viewing them as slaves.
Right. But abolitionists argued for their freedom.
Oh, wow. That's a tough situation.
It really was. A defining moment for Van Buren, you'd think.
So what did he do?
Well, it gets complicated. Van Buren, always the pragmatist.
Yeah.
He wanted to keep good relations with Spain.
I can see that.
And he didn't want to upset slaveholding interests in the South.
Oh.
So he sided with Spain.
He did.
And sought to return the Mende people to Cuba.
Wow. So even with the clear moral implications
with slavery, yeah,
and the bravery of these people fighting for their freedom,
Van Buren put political expediency first.
That's a tough pill to swallow.
It is. It shows the pressure a president's face,
Yeah, trying to balance morality with political realities.
It's not always easy, that's for sure.
But wait, there's more to the story.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It didn't just end with Van Buren's decision.
The abolitionists rallied around the Mende people.
They did.
They got them lawyers, and the case went all the way to the Supreme Court.
Wow, to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and get this. Former President John Quincy Adams.
John Quincy Adams.
He argued for their freedom.
That's amazing. I bet that was a historic trial.
Oh, it was. Adams was brilliant,
Yeah.
He used his knowledge of international law and the Declaration of Independence to argue that the Mende people weren't slaves, free individuals who had the right to resist their captivity.
It sounds like an incredible argument.
Oh, it was a landmark case.
And the court, did they agree with Adams?
They did. In a surprising victory, they ruled in favor of the Mende people.
Wow.
Recognizing that they were kidnapped illegally.
They were finally free.
It was a huge win for the abolitionist movement, though the fight was far from over.
Absolutely. The story is just, wow. It's inspiring. Really.
In the face of incredible odds and a president who opposed them,
they won their freedom.
It really shows the power of resilience.
And never giving up, even when it seems impossible.
Absolutely. And, as we move into the later years of Van Buren's presidency, these themes keep popping up,
Personal ambition.
Political maneuvering.
Those huge national issues.
Like slavery, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Van Buren's attempt to get a second term.
The election of 1840.
Right, and a new player enters the scene. John Tyler.
And then there's the annexation of Texas.
It was a whole new ballgame.
Yeah, Texas annexation was a really complicated issue.
Right. Huge territory, tons of potential.
But also, the slavery question?
Yeah, couldn't escape that.
It was already dividing the nation.
So how did Van Buren handle all that?
Well, he was hesitant about annexation.
Really?
He worried it would just make tensions worse.
Between the North and South.
Exactly. Could even lead to war with Mexico.
That's a valid concern.
Yeah. But his stance didn't go over well with everyone.
Especially in his own party.
Southern Democrats were not happy.
They wanted Texas for slavery, right?
For their own economic interests.
So even though Van Buren was trying to be cautious,
it kind of backfired.
Pushed the issue even further into the spotlight.
And gave John Tyler an opening.
Right. Tyler became president after William Henry Harrison died, didn't he?
Yeah, super short presidency for Harrison.
And Tyler saw Texas as his chance, right?
To make a name for himself, or maybe even get a full term.
Ambitious.
Oh yeah, he was much more aggressive than Van Buren.
Even willing to clash with Congress?
He wanted Texas no matter what.
So much political maneuvering going on.
Tons. And we can't forget about Old Hickory.
Andrew Jackson. I thought he was retired by this point.
He was, but still a powerful figure.
Pulling strings from behind the scenes.
You got it. He believed in expansion, and that included Texas.
And slavery, right?
Oh, yeah, he was a firm believer in that, too.
So what did he do?
He actually wrote to Van Buren, urging him to support annexation.
Wow, directly influencing the sitting president.
And he warned Van Buren, opposing Texas could cost him the election.
Wow, that's intense.
It is. Jackson's influence was still huge.
Even in retirement, he was shaping things.
Definitely. He even helped bring James K. Polk to the forefront.
Polk? Didn't he end up becoming president?
Yep. He is a Jacksonian Democrat through and through.
So pro-annexation, pro-expansion.
Exactly. He promised all that during the campaign.
It's like Jackson was playing chess, you know?
Yeah, moving all the pieces around.
To get the outcome he wanted.
He got his way in the end. Tyler realized he couldn't win.
So he dropped out.
And supported Polk, who went on to win.
Annexation became a reality.
And the country kept expanding westward.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
How so?
Van Buren tried to be cautious, avoid conflict.
Right, didn't want to divide the nation further.
But in the end, that's exactly what happened.
His caution highlighted the divide. And led to the outcome he was trying to prevent.
Fascinating how history works out like that.
It is. Van Buren often gets overshadowed by Jackson.
He was kind of in his shadow, wasn't he?
But his presidency was really important.
It was a turning point in so many ways.
Economic upheaval, social change, political battles.
And always that question of slavery looming.
It set the stage for what was to come.
Yeah, the road to the Civil War.
Exactly. And it all happened under the shadow of Andrew Jackson.
A powerful legacy that shaped the nation.
It makes you think, doesn't it? But the impact leaders have.
Even after they're gone.
So what do you think?
About?
Was Van Buren just Jackson's third term?
Like some people say.
Or was he his own man, making tough choices in a challenging time?
It's a good question to ponder, for sure.
And it's something we should all think about.
The role of leadership, the impact of decisions.
History gives us so much to learn from.
That's why we do these deep dives.
To explore the past, to understand the present.
And maybe, just maybe, to learn something for the future.
Absolutely. We can't change history.
But we can learn from it.
So keep exploring, keep questioning.
Keep digging deeper into these fascinating stories.
And who knows what you might discover.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the age of Jackson.
And we'll see you next time for another fascinating journey through history.